Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay. Never comes again, another day like yesterday. Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do a short episode where I reiterate some thoughts from a previous episode and then just share something nice that I experienced this morning that is a demonstration of what I'm talking about in that episode. I think the episode was called Kindness, It's Not Rocket Science, something like that. And I was partially decrying what I see as somewhat infantilization of American culture, maybe other cultures, I don't know, but I'm living here. So that's what I address, where we have conflict as we've always had. We've always had conflict. Humans live with conflict. They live with contradiction. We have to interact with people who believe things that are counter to what we believe. We have to interact with people who believe things that we find deeply offensive. But over the last 15 years, and I'm sure everybody makes the connection that social media and the internet has a lot to do with it, but also just that we've allowed ourselves the shift. What I noted in that podcast, Kindness is Not Rocket Science, is that in our navigating of conflict, Americans seem to have backed into a really petty, juvenile way of responding to conflict, in which we feel terribly outraged and we name call and insult and diminish other people, or we seem to be completely unaware of situations and we get really sort of childish about insisting upon our rights in given situations. And one of the examples that I gave was a scene that I had witnessed at an intersection near my house that there's very wide 4-lane roads. One of the roads, so it's a cross intersection with a light, but it's a large intersection that takes some time to cross if you're a pedestrian or whatever. And so it was one of these, and it's heavily traveled. There's lots of traffic there going both ways, and they tend to travel more quickly than they probably should. People treat it sort of as a highway. I saw a case where the light had turned orange, and you see a jogger who's like, well, I'm going to be stuck here for like 8 to 10 minutes, like running in place. I think I can make this, but the jogger had misjudged it. So as he was trying to sprint through the yellow light, then there are people trying to turn left, right, which are going to be coming through. They waited for the yellow light to get to turn left. And so this jogger got trapped in the middle. And again, it's a large intersection. It's some distance to, and then sort of freaked out and went like, oh crap, I did the wrong thing. And then tried to turn around and run back, but was already kind of almost halfway through. And the person turning left, of course, they're blocked and they're not going to run over a pedestrian, but they just laid on the horn like, wah, 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 right? And you know the attitude, right? This person's like, you jackass, you idiot, what are you doing, blah, blah. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe that's the way I am. But I think you could hear the attitude in it. And my perspective was, for the motorist, are you right? Legally? Yes. I mean, legally, pedestrians always have the right of way. But did you follow the rules? Yes, you did. You waited in California, you wait until you pull up into the intersection, you wait until the light turns yellow and there's no more oncoming traffic, and then you make your left turn no matter what, even if it just turned red, just to get out of the intersection. So that's sort of like standard practice. So did you follow the rules? Yes, you did. And at the same time, it's childish. Just because those are the rules and you were right doesn't mean that you're not a petty person, that you see a pedestrian who made a snap decision Definitely, I've been in that position where you're like, oh crap, like if I miss this, I'm gonna be stuck like running in place or just standing here cooling off. Like some of these intersections, it takes 8, 10 minutes for your turn to come again. So you're gonna sit there and cool off for 8, 10 minutes. And so you could see that the runner was like, man, I want to like keep running. I'm just gonna jet through this. And it was the wrong decision. Okay. The motorist, it's like, where's your basic just decency? You don't need rules. You don't need rules. And you're in the right with your rules. But you don't need rules to tell you, like, hey, that guy made a mistake and that mistake interfered with what you were doing, but you're being very childish and unkind. It doesn't take some hugely empathetic, compassionate person to go, oh, you know what? We've all done stuff. Like I could see that the guy tried to make it and he didn't. It was a wrong decision. And now he's in a difficult position because he's like a pedestrian right in the middle of a very busy intersection, and the vehicles are starting to move, and he needs to sprint to one side or the other and wait, which one am I going to do? You know, the way I'm going, there are cars trying to turn right who want to go, who are not waiting. They can't see him coming from the left because they're looking right because that's where they're turning. And at the same time, he's blocking the people trying to turn left into that street. If he turns around and sprints, there's people trying to turn right there. It's kind of a mess. He got himself into a mess and it's a little bit unsafe. And you, the motorist, are just like, you got in my way and pissed me off, you jerk. It's like, that's not even about kindness. That's just like not being a jackass. And what worries me about American culture is we've become so petty and self-interested about being right and like, well, this is what the rules are and I'm following the rules. It's like, yeah, my 6-year-old can do that. My 3-year-old can do that. Like a 3-year-old learns and internalizes the rules remarkably well, but they have no sense of perspective. That's why they'll throw a temper tantrum when it's like, yes, mommy and daddy did tell you you could have a treat, but you didn't eat well, so we need to change that. Well, from their perspective, strictly speaking, that's unjust. You told them that they could have a little scoop of ice cream after, and then you saw that they really only ate bread and they didn't eat any of their protein, and you're just like, I got to protect my child's health. I'm not giving them a dessert. But strictly speaking, that's unjust, and they understand that, and they throw a temper tantrum. And you have to just impose your will and be like, as the more experienced people with a deeper understanding of the situation, we know this feels unjust, but you're not going to have a dessert because we didn't get enough healthy food in you, and it's going to just be really bad for you. And we don't want to set up this habit where you sort of like skip eating your protein and your veggies and then you're just like, oh, I want dessert. And it's like, no, like there's a bigger, more complex situation here. So sometimes I'm not even sure it's about kindness. It's just, again, for that motorist, it's like, you don't have to feel kind towards that person. You don't even have to, like, you can be irritated. I feel irritated by that stuff all the time. Like, I'm the worst driver internally. Like, what people do irritates me all the time. It irritates the crap out of me that no one in Southern California uses their GD blinkers. No one. They'll just like merge willy-nilly whenever they feel like it and hope that you get out of the way, and you don't even, like, nobody bothers to use their blinkers anymore. It pisses me off. And I'm grouchy and I'm old and it irritates me and I have an irritated state, and that's my problem, right? I'm not yelling at anybody, but I'm as big a jerk as anybody else, but it's just basically being an adult that at least intellectually we can understand. Reality is more complex than that, right? For that jogger, like, we're all in that position. We all do stuff where it's like, oh, split second decision. Oh, you know what I think? Oh my God, no, it was the wrong thing. Oh crap, I'm in the middle of everything. Sorry guys, my fault. But the person who, look, in the big context, the more we have people like that, the worse society works, the more friction there is, the more fights, the more pettiness. And in law and in business and in education and in day-to-day interactions, we need people who have some level of complexity of understanding of how complex life is, and that people can accidentally make snap decisions that are the wrong decisions, that interfere with other people and make problems for other people. But that the health and success of your own society, of the environment that you live in, depends upon you being mature enough to go, I'm not going to inject more friction and negativity and passive aggressiveness and childishness into the situation. A, because you don't want kids growing up thinking that they're right by the time they're 6. Because that's how my 6-year-old behaves. So if we're modeling this in society, my 6-year-old thinks, oh, I've figured out how things work. How things work for me as a 6-year-old throwing temper tantrums is how things work. That's it. I'm done evolving. Right? So even if you don't feel understanding or empathetic, like, it's not good for you. The person who's being really irritated and communicating that irritation in a really judgmental, petty way, you're not helping yourself by what you create. But even if you don't connect with that, even if you're like, that's bullshit, like, whatever, it doesn't, the butterfly effect is bullshit. That guy deserved it. It's not going to come back. Like, I don't care what you say. Like, even if you don't believe that that creates an environment in which kids grow up and then they behave that way and they think that's normal, and then you have to experience them being petty and childish once they're 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 80, whatever. If you don't believe that, you can at least believe that everybody in that situation knows that you're the childish, petty, judgmental, critical person who lacks emotional maturity. Like, nobody looks in that situation and goes, wow, that's a really assertive, mature person, and I'm glad they laid on their horn and just taught that guy a lesson. No, most people are like, all right, you got some maturing to do there. Maybe you're just having a really bad day. That could be true too. But, right, people are not proud of you. And maybe you don't care about that either. But it's also not good for you. If you can feel some compassion for that runner and go, you know what, all of us, we make decisions, we make snap decisions. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're rushed, sometimes they're overly self-interested. I understand you, man. Like, get it. You know what? I'm going to stop. I'm going to wave you on and be like, hey, you're all right. Go ahead. Be careful, man. Get through. Forget about the impact outside of you. Just doing that is going to configure your internal state. You're going to experience endorphins and oxytocin and healthy exchange of neurotransmitters and dopamine and serotonin and all of these chemical things going on inside you that reduce negative medical outcomes, that actually reduce all-cause mortality. Anger, frustration, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all of these things result in inflammation, result medically in a state of inflammation inside, which results in suffering from and dying from autoimmune diseases, and many diseases that people don't even associate as autoimmune. Like, people have a heart attack, people don't really think, oh, that's autoimmune. No. If you experience increased inflammation inside all the time, that wears on your organs, right? An autoimmune disease is a case where your body is so overly defensive that it's low-key attacking your own organs. So whatever organ you have that's a little bit more susceptible is where it shows up. People whose brains are sensitive show up with Alzheimer's or dementia. People whose hearts are a little bit less robust end up having heart attacks. So there are GI issues, blah, 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 right? So even if you don't have the emotional maturity to understand that it's to your benefit, or even just to want people to enjoy the benefit of your generosity, even if you don't understand that, understand this one thing: how you configure your internal chemistry, your internal energy has everything to do with how well you do in life. That's a fact. That's being documented at a deeper and deeper level all the time. It's no longer some woo-woo from some spiritual movement that's like, oh, work on your gratitude and achieve a higher energy, a higher frequency, like whatever. I'm sort of acting like I'm mocking it, but I believe in it. I don't mean to mock it, but I'm just imitating people who think that's bullshit. Well, guess what? It wasn't bullshit and it's not bullshit now. How you behave and feel towards other people is and becomes your internal environment, and you're the only person who experiences that. You're the only person who lives with that, and there are medical outcomes and there are life outcomes. You end up miserable, right? So anyway, I'm just sort of recapping that. Again, I think it was kindness. It's not rocket science. I don't think I don't need to go on at length, but I saw a really fun, really nice, a kind example of what I'm talking about. We shouldn't be like, oh, you're so kind. Like that's just the norm. That should be the norm. Just the norm, right? I bike commute, so I was biking in and I came early because I have clients earlier this morning. And so I came earlier. It's really drizzling. It's very overcast, foggy, cold. And there isn't nearly as much traffic at this time. So a couple blocks away from my office, there's a major street, Wilshire, and I was crossing that. And right on the corner, there's a bank. And at night, they have armed security at the bank because they'll have ATMs inside I don't know what you call it, like a foyer, where you can get access to the ATM when the bank is closed. But they have security there to protect people who are coming to withdraw money. Anyway, so there's a security guard there standing there on the corner. Probably boring. He's probably been there since like 2 a.m. or something. It's boring, not fun. And he's standing there and I pull up to the light. But a bike isn't heavy enough, whatever. I think there's weight sensors at intersections that tell you, oh, there's some cars waiting. So if you pull up as a car, either the weight sensor or the metal, I don't know what it is, how that does it, but it tells the light, hey, someone's waiting. And if there's no one coming the other way, it'll actually change the light for you so you can go through. But that doesn't happen for a bike. So if there's traffic coming the other way and there's no car coming up behind you, you can sit there on a bike for 15 minutes and not have it change. Now on the down low, I just sprint through those if there's no traffic, whatever. Everybody gets pissed at bikers for doing that, but you have no idea how much start and stop you have to do if you don't. If a biker gets hit doing that, it's on them, right? We're breaking the rules. Anyway, so this guy's sort of watching me. I nod to him, good morning. And he kind of nods to me. And as he sits there, he begins to sort of see the situation of like, oh, there's no cross traffic. This biker's just sitting here because the light's red. So what does he do? He takes 2 steps over and he presses the walk signal. Because once you press that, it says a pedestrian wants to cross and it signals the light, hey, someone's waiting, so change. So he changed the light for me. I could have done it. I have this big, heavy electric bike. You have to drag it over and, up onto the curb and press a thing. Well, yeah, I could have done it. The point is not that it can be done or can't be done, but with a couple of steps, he just offered me an acknowledgement and a kindness. Amen. Let me press that light for you so the light changes. I'm sitting here talking about it on a podcast. It's just a genuine kindness. It's just someone paying attention. Just paying attention to what's going on around them and understanding what someone else is experiencing and going, oh, I can take 2 steps and offer you a kindness. And it's not just that it's like, oh, I'm suffering terribly. So no, that's not it. It is that the offering of the kindness expands so much, expands out into society so much. Again, I'm sitting here talking about it. And it also reminds me, for some reason in the last 48 hours, I've been in like a really like slightly depressed, grouchy, whatever. And that guy just softened me up. And here I am talking about it and reminding everyone on a podcast, hey, like, don't forget these small acts of kindness. Just being aware of what other people just be aware of what other people are experiencing when you're standing there bored or, whatever, just small acts of kindness. You have no idea how it expands. You have no idea what it does to your body. Of course, I yelled over to the guy, hey, thank you, right? And I hope that he received that and understood. I genuinely feel grateful. You were paying attention and you thought about me and helped me out. Now, for some people, they're going to be like, oh my God, this is like what you're talking about. Like, that should just be how people act. But it's not. It's not. So often it's not. There's so much pettiness and selfishness and even just complete unawareness of anyone else and what anyone else is experiencing, even to the point of being unsafe. I remember one thing that like made me mad and scared me one day as I was driving down one of the streets in Santa Monica on the way to my office, and I saw an older woman dragging like a 3-year-old behind her, yakking on her phone, who literally just wandered into the street and crossed the street against traffic flying through. She never even registered that all of traffic, I was the car in front, so I came to a screeching halt in the middle of the intersection and stopped. But it wasn't just her. She was like dragging a 3-year-old behind her who was 2 feet behind her. Like they both could have been wiped out if some motorist was not, if it wasn't me or whoever, some motorist paying attention. And she just yacked on her phone, staring at her phone, and walked right up on the other side of the curb and never even registered that she had just walked this 3-year-old child that looked like he was her grandchild or something into the middle of speeding traffic and never even registered that she had done it and went to the other side, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm being judgmental because it pisses me off that she endangered the child. Right? I wanted to get out and be like, hey, you just walked your 3-year-old into the middle of traffic and didn't even notice. Not to mention the fact that you're with your child, this baby, and you're sitting there yakking on the phone. Come on, guys. Okay, I'm being judgmental and unkind to her. I don't know what her reality is. But the point is like it's about kindness, but even like just basic self-preservation. Maybe people have always been this way, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we have allowed ourselves to be zipped up into these tight little self-encapsulations where even if we want to be empathetic, we spend so much time in our own little reality, in our own little head, staring at a two-dimensional object where we pretend we're relating to other people. You're not. You're not relating to other people. You're relating to an electromechanical gadget. Stop it. Stop pretending that you're increasing your social interaction. No, you're not. No, you're not. I don't care how much you interact or you message people, blah, blah. There is no way to replace calling someone and hearing their voice or going to see someone and sitting in the presence of another. There's no way to replace that. Stop pretending that social media has any function or any relationship to that. It doesn't. It doesn't have any relationship to it any more than taking a spoonful of processed sugar and eating it has some relationship to eating an apple. None. None. There's no relationship. Stop. Okay, let's go back to the point. Just basic self-preservation, self-awareness, of just being aware of people around you and aware of what they're experiencing, and then offering small kindnesses to help facilitate their way when it costs you nothing. It costs you nothing. Right? That security guard went over, just walked 2 steps and went bleep and pressed the walk button to help the light change. What I benefit from, and I hope what he benefits from, is invaluable in comparison to just being aware and going over and doing that. It's better for all of us. It's better for all of us. It's better for you. Every time you do it, you're creating an internal environment that reduces all-cause mortality, reduces pain, reduces depression, anxiety, brings more joy, brings more connection. There's no way to talk about it. I could spend days, hours talking about the beauty of what that is and what the value is. Even if you don't really care about other people, it's so good for you. And also it trains you just to be aware of what's around you. So you're not some grandma walking your grandchild into the middle of rushing traffic and never even noticing, and crossing the whole street and never even noticing that you stopped traffic with a 3-year-old behind you. Sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. You're beautiful. That's for you, Grandma. That's also for the motorist who got angry and honked at the jogger. Because I'm also being judgmental and, right? That's all I have to say. That security guard did me a kindness and it's nice, and I'm talking about it and I'm just putting it back out there. Kindness is not rocket science. Right? It's you have no idea the value of it, the beauty of it, and how much we decry how petty and childish and confrontational and simple-minded and black and white thinking and guess what? If you don't know what to do and you're like, I don't want to get into social media and start posting like we shouldn't be talking this way and writing articles to shift people's okay, no. The most effective thing you can do is just start offering small acts of kindness every day, every hour, walking around. That literally has far more impact than trying to sound smart and write an article and publish it somewhere. What that security guard has far more impact than me commenting on it on this podcast. There is nothing more powerful and impactful for your outcomes, internally as well as society itself, than just small acts of kindness daily. That's my message for the day. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Take care.
Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.